Hi, friends, and welcome back to Heal with Mushrooms, a podcast where we explore the transformational magic of fungi through the lenses of science, storytelling, and sacred feminine wisdom. I'm your host, Cassandra Beaumont. This summer has been filled with incredible moments of connection and discovery. In June, I had the honor of attending Psychedelic Science 2025 in Denver, where thousands of minds gathered to explore how sacred medicines are shaping our future. I found myself in deep conversations about mushroom therapy, women's leadership in psychedelics, and the urgent need to reclaim our ancestral connection to fungi. Just a few weeks later, I was tucked away in the forest at Myco Camp on the eastern side of Mount Hood in Oregon. We were off-grid, and I think about 50 to 75 mushroom lovers of all ages showed up to foray and explore. We were hunting porcini, and some people were looking for morels. One was found, not great condition. And so a lot of porcinis. A few other cool mushrooms were found, like some corals, and it was a great time. So I found my first perfect porcini out there to share a little, and it was really exciting. My friend and I were off exploring, looking for the perfect conditions, the right amount of moisture in the ground, the right amount of tree litter, the right trees that the fungus is in relationship with, and eventually I stumbled upon 3 magical king Boletus, otherwise known as porcinis, and this is cool because today's guest on our show, she actually has a special connection to the porcini as well, so stay tuned to hear all about that. I want to thank you, dear listener, for tuning in to my little mushroom magic and wisdom sharing show. I hope you're enjoying learning about these phenomenal women and the stories that they share with you. I am so excited to bring to you today's guest, Gabriela D'Elia. Gabriela D'Elia is a mycologist, educator, and writer whose work bridges scientific rigor with ecological and spiritual inquiry. She has been deeply involved with fungi since 2012, engaging in cultivation, medicine making, foraging, guiding walks, educating, and leading conservation efforts. Gabriela served as executive director for the Fungal Diversity Survey, FunDiS, North America's nonprofit for fungal conservation, for over 3 years and continues to contribute as a board member. She initiated the successful campaign to designate porcini as Utah's state mushroom and created the Northern Utah Fungi Biodiversity Project. Gabriela holds a BA in Environmental Studies with a focus in fungal ecology and a minor in philosophy. She has been featured in publications like Yes Magazine, Mushroom People, Atmos, and podcasts such as Mushroom Revival and The Mushroom Hour. Her work includes guiding deep imagination mushroom walks and circles, microbiodiversity studies, and weekend mushroom retreats with Catskill fungi. She also explores the intersection of fungi and astrology through her writings in Microastrology and her Substack journal. Gabriela's approach integrates scientific understanding with myth, ceremony, and ecological soulfulness, aiming to deepen our connection with the fungal kingdom. Hi, Gabriela. Welcome so much to Heal with Mushrooms.
Hello, it's so great to see you, Cassandra. It's so wonderful that our paths have crossed again. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're so welcome. A little backstory. One of my favorite walks at a place right next to Bastyr campus, they call it St. Edward State Park, was actually with Gabriela and another woman named Reishi. We went on a super cool fungus walk and found a bunch of mushrooms and a bunch of cat's claw, I think. Oh no, Devil's Club. Devil's Club was
Found
out.
Devil's Club. I remember we found the Stemonitis, the chocolate milk slime mold. There was a lot of that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my first mushroom walks ever. So that's so cool. That why did you like it?
I liked it because we just got to play, and it felt like being a child in the woods and having permission to go and touch and see everything and then bring it back with excitement and have someone be excited for what I'd found. And to me, that's like such a joy, because so many times if you go mushroom like wandering and exploring with people who don't care and you bring back a mushroom, they're like, that's nice, but they don't validate you at all. They don't care. They don't want to find the name of it. Being with you and Reishi and having people actually validate my joy for finding mushrooms and then help me figure out what it was is like probably one of the things that made me happiest back then.
Oh, I love hearing that. Yeah, Reishi Strauss is still doing stuff. Has she been on your podcast yet? She'd probably be a great person.
No, she hasn't been on yet.
Yeah. She's doing stuff still. It's great to see where we've gone. But I remember that walk so well. I remember like hopping across logs and big rocks like a frog or something. That's like what I remember one of the things most clearly. But I also remember in that walk using this quote, speaking this quote that I still speak to most of the time in my mushroom walks. And I remember that walk was like really when I found that quote and I was like, this is so central to my perspective, which I will repeat here. And it is that seeing is forgetting the name of the thing one sees. Seeing is forgetting the name of the thing one sees. And it's attributed to artist Paul Valery. And it's been one of the most consistent themes in my mycology interest, because we'll talk about science and conservation and things like that, but it is so meaningful to me, the more just the beauty of fungi and who they are, how they live on this planet, how we relate to them, not just in a mental or scientific way, but all the other beautiful ways. And so I think it's really fascinating when the field of mycology is so vast and exciting. There's, 2 to 10 million species of fungi that exist on the planet, and we've only identified or named 5% of those. And so people get very excited about who is this? What mushroom is this? What am I looking at? And I find that on mushroom walks, they often just want to know that, they just bring you a mushroom and they're like, what is this name? What is this called? And then if I say the name, they're like, okay, cool. And then they just turn to the next mushroom and they don't notice anything. They don't have a connection, or like they don't receive the presence of that being who just showed themselves to them. So it's like, instead of giving them their name, the mushroom name immediately, I like to ask, what would you name them? What are you noticing about them? What color are they? Where did you find them? What is their habitat? What's their embeddedness? How are they existing? How are they growing? Are they decomposing? Are they being eaten by something? Like, have your own experience with this mushroom before I tell you a name.
I love that. That's such a fun way to look at it too, because you're inviting them deeper into the conversation with both the mushroom and life itself. So you're asking them,
exactly.
Like, what do you see? Be a part of this ever emerging field of both science and fascination, because mushrooms are they're the ultimate tool for deep imagination. I mean, they grow underground, they pop up like a little mystical creature coming out of the earth to say hi. They release spores into the air that then magically transport them all over the world to then reappear somewhere else. Like, that is straight, just like the genius of creation right there. Like, they are such cool things.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I often center them so much because it's like right through their existence, they teach us and show us so much about the interconnectedness, the resilience, the renewal, the regeneration. It's not like life is one stagnant, isolated thing or object. It's like really fungi can show us that in such this like just dramatic, like embodied, really storied, poetic way that it's really difficult to actually understand, like to try to isolate the individuals, to try to isolate hypha or like a mycelial network from the root system it's participating with. And so it's like, yeah, centering on their story can give us a really rich lens into all the other interconnectedness. And like it gives us sort of some orientation, I think, when we center on fungi, and they're so often uncentered in this American, at least United States culture that we live in. So that's a really big part of, I just love them so much. And I think that uplifting their voices, resourcing them, not just scientifically, but, emotionally, spiritually, in this physical. How do we know the land that we live with is like so important. It's the most important thing, I think, right now, is considering ourselves soil, not returning to the soil, but that we are the fungi, we are the soil, and how can we learn from them? Fungi are our teachers of renewal, of the new stories of embodiment, of resilience, and like really they are teaching us incredible things right now if we open ourselves to it.
That's beautiful. I did note one really interesting thing on social media recently that I think will add an entire new level to how we interact with fungi. And it's that they've been able to connect it to robotic arms so it can play music. They gave mushrooms the ability to make their own music. And I see these are like the next steps towards mushroom, like almost starting to get recognized as having a form of consciousness. Like we are kind of at that brink where we're playing with it left and right, with humans seeing like, okay, mushrooms now have the ability to emote via music. Mushrooms have the ability to talk in their own languages in the forest. And the more we like have these conversations about their abilities, their ways of reasoning and being with us in the world, the more we can maybe think into like, yeah, how can we listen to them and bring their needs to the forefront? How can we get them advocated in both our like home realms and in our bigger like state and government realms? Because I know you've done a lot of work with FunDiS and you created the California FunDiS project. Do you want to speak a little bit about how that ties together with giving fungus a voice?
Yeah. Oh boy. I love that you just brought that up. I'll have to circle back to kind of well, maybe before I forget, I think, yes, I think it can be so important to give access to fungi, in those ways, in these more maybe electronic or, like computer interface ways, because, part of myself thinks that that's amazing and that people living in cities, they don't see mushrooms often perhaps, or they don't really have the opportunity to connect or relate with wild, earth that often, other than, it might not seem like that. So, having fungal voices presented in different ways to people at large is going to be really amazing. And then part of myself thinks like, yeah, I mean, you could just stick your ear to the mushroom and hear their music they're making as well. It's like, it's just, we humans we love making our languages and we love, translating things to each other. And there's so many ways to hear fungi. And that's really, what a lot about how I like to guide people into relationship with them is like, yeah, I love the music. I love that we're doing that. But what if you just were with them? Like, what kind of music do you hear just without any kind of introduced like computer or whatever it is, but it's still, they're both. That's like really where I've found myself, is that like both of these things, all ways of maybe giving fungi voice is very important for humans and for just planetary resilience at large. And so, yeah, I think I got really into fungal conservation a few years ago because fungi mean so much to me and I wanted to be able to help them. I wanted to help people help fungi. And so I became involved with the Fungal Diversity Survey, or FunDiS for short, which is North America's nonprofit that focuses on fungal conservation. And it began in 2017. There's other podcasts like the Mushroom Hour. There's a bunch of material about our history and everything. And I'm not going to totally go into that with you right now. But I think one of the most, we focused on community science a lot, which is so essential with the understanding of fungi. And like I mentioned, that we've only documented 5% of fungi, and like they are so essential to human and I mean more than human existence. But if we even just focus on humans, it's like we wouldn't have chocolate, beer, wine, bread, ferments that have kept cultures alive. We wouldn't have antibiotics. We wouldn't have like all of the yeast ferments that all the pharmaceuticals are made from, we wouldn't have a microbiota. Like, there's more fungal and bacterial cells in our body than us alone. Like, they're just these unsung heroes about engaging, like interfacing with the continual emergence of life, and then looking planetarily, we wouldn't have forests, we wouldn't have probably a lot of our insects, a lot of the land, a lot of plant and animal diversity without fungal diversity. And fungi have just been so hidden. People haven't cared about fungi in this country that much. We come from a very mycophobic culture. And so there are other cultures like places in South America, places in Europe, places in Asia who love fungi. But we've had a long history as well as kind of our more niche, taboo underground communities, like the mushroom clubs, the weird people. If you get a group of mushroom people together, they probably all identify as the weird kids in high school or something, But in the systems that we live in this country, like justice for fungi is very important, and bringing them into the conversation, giving them voices, highlighting them and who they are so that we can include them in our conservation policies and education. Did you learn about fungi in high school or anything like that?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, in my high school, yeah, you have to seek it out. Exactly. It becomes this weird, you have to seek anything out. It becomes a weird taboo thing. But yeah, my biology textbook had one like 3-inch paragraph about the entire kingdom of fungi. And it's like, what? Excuse what? So I'd always been just, close with land. And it was really when I started seeing mushrooms when I moved to beautiful Washington State, where I met you and where you still live. And on my campus, I went to Seattle University, and the mushrooms that are in your background, the Amanita muscaria, they fruited within the first couple of days of me being on the campus right outside the dorm. And I had never seen enormous Amanita muscarias like this just in my whole life in person. And there were like 10 of them, and I dropped my bag and I crouched next to them, and I was just hanging out with them for like an hour. And I guess they just changed my life. They're my spark shroom. And so I found Fungal Diversity Survey a few years after that. And really a lot of my education came from spending time with the Puget Sound Mycological Society, with Daniel Winkler, Danny Miller. They were the first mycologists who took me in the field with them. And I had my own experience of like, oh my God, what are these names? Who are these mushrooms? I can't remember any of them. They're so vast, and just like everyone looks different. And it's such a magical time. And I still find mushrooms all the time. That's like something that's so amazing about this field. It's just still all the time when you're out finding mushrooms, you still don't really know who you're looking at, even like over a decade later. It's beautiful. So Fungal Diversity Survey has greatly engaged the community scientists or the citizen scientists. I know you've had Mandy Quirk on your show, which was amazing. We worked in Fungal Diversity Survey together for a little bit. And mycology is just, there's so much opportunity for discovery. There's so much need for not only discovering who the fungi are and where they exist, their distribution, and, the species that are potentially out there, but what they do, and, the medicines they create, the medicines they like, how they're medicinal for our environment. There's so much we don't know about them, and they're already so important. So it's like, wow, I wonder what might happen if we resource this field a little bit more, if we actually consider them their own kingdom. If you drop the G, it becomes gender neutral instead of kingdom or queendom. And, it's true. We are all kin. So if the fungal kingdom get voices of their own, what might be possible? So there's a lot of community science work that FunDiS does. There's the Rare Fungi Challenges, which really promote the rare or threatened mushroom species in your region. So there's posters online. You can look up how to become a community scientist. We have a bunch of resources. And we want you to add your observations to iNaturalist or Mushroom Observer to help build the data so that we can understand which fungi are thriving or declining. And then the state of California, I believe in 2021 or 2022, 22, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 2022 is when CA FunDiS began. And the state of California and the California Institute for Biodiversity started funding a biological inventory for their whole state. And after a couple years, it was due to an executive order from Gavin Newsom from years ago. So finally things kind of fell together to make it happen. And they were doing like soil organisms and insects. And then after a couple years, they funded the whole section of fungi. And this is the first time a state has done this. And, FunDiS was ready to engage a lot of people and dive into a big project like that. So over the past, we finished 2 years of work so far. We're starting our third, and we put together like the first, paid jobs of people going out and collecting mushroom specimens that are part of this state inventory. We put together these whole systems with like Hart Singer and Ken Bulis, and there's like so many people, Christian Schwartz. There's so many people. We had like a hired, 20 or 30 team of people collecting mushrooms, and then we had sequence validators, and we had DNA sequencers, and these whole pipelines. We partnered with Cal State East Bay with Dr. Brian Perry and put this whole thing together, and it is beautiful, and we're all very proud of our work. We've collected over 6,000 specimens, and I think one of the interesting, from all kinds of different ecologies, California is a biodiversity hotspot. There's all different niches there, so it's very fascinating. And our team has discovered potentially new mycorrhizal relationships for the first time with desert chaparral, like chaparral environments with these shrubs that were not known to host mycorrhizal associations. I mean, there's really fascinating discoveries, like what happens when there's resources, when there's actually money going towards people wanting to do this kind of work. So we're continuing that work. It changes along the way. We're very grateful for the state to want to understand their fungal species, and we know that this we're creating a lot of data. We're building a lot of data that can be very usable by a lot of different people. And one of the main other points of research that I'd like to highlight is throughout our DNA sequencing so far, we've established about a 17% new DNA sequence rate. So that means that about 17% of the species that we have DNA sequenced don't have a matching DNA sequence. So they're potentially new fungal species or fungi that have been not DNA sequenced. They're already in libraries in Fungaria or Herbaria, but they don't have a sequence attached to them yet. So we're showing a lot of potential, like new doors for more work that needs to be done as well. So it's amazing. It's incredible. We're really grateful to be doing this.
Well, that is awesome. I now feel like I understand more of the workings of FunDiS and how you guys kind of all got the momentum together and where the money came from. So that all is really cool and makes sense. I wanted to segue into this. About 2 months ago, got involved only at my local county level, but I found out that they were doing what's called the critical areas regulations update. So it's something that happens every 10 years in Snohomish County where I live, where they change what is appropriate for developers who want to build and encroach on critical areas and how far they need to have for buffer zones and what the regulations are around all that. So I actually petitioned them to include fungal diversity in their studies and to include that with the information that they were collecting on plants and animals and humans and other, all these other surveys, you could say. And we got into a really interesting conversation how they would like to do this, but they didn't. Their holdup basically was they couldn't find, and I tried to find with them, another city or county that was doing it at this level. I could present to them FunDiS and show them at a statewide level what it looks like. But would you say there's any nuance between a funded California statewide product and something I could get done locally, maybe, if I was working with the council members to try and have them see fungus as something to be represented in our critical areas?
Oh, I love that you're doing that. Thank you so much for working on that. I'd say the main question is just scale. And so it's really just whatever resources and people are available. You know, this we've already done a couple of years of California is a very big state too,
Yeah.
so it would be a lot more simple. But it's so important to have localized people. You know, like who knows about the potential rare fungi or threatened fungi or things that haven't been documented in your counties. So getting locally informed people who know their land involved is, I think, really essential. But sometimes, yeah, there's so many things we could talk about with this, but a lot of the times people are like, great, we want to do it, but we don't have the money for it. Or like they get confused because fungi aren't plants and
Yeah.
you can't study them the same way. And so that's why, yeah, if anybody has any leads or potential projects, and if FunDiS can be a resource for you, please just reach out, because that's one of the things we've created is um, payroll, right? Like we have people who like can run these kinds of things that seem to be overhead expenses or just things that people don't really want to consider. So if we as a nonprofit across North America can be helpful, please reach out. Yeah, I mean, and I would talk. Have you talked with like local mycologists about it too, like
Well,
from clubs or
yeah,
something?
I brought it up to the Snohomish Mycological Club. So, like, we as a club have talked about it, and one of the other members, he actually made a video for a TikTok talking about the
Mm,
legislation that we were trying to work on, having passed with the county. But I guess like the holdup for me was King County is a little bit more active and has more resources devoted to things like this. Snohomish County, we don't have any schools or we don't have any resource like that we can kind of tap into that would maybe partner with the mycological people to kind of give us more footing. So that was one thing I was considering looking into was like UW would probably still work with us even though we're a different county and things like that, because there are some active people trying to do like the DNA barcoding and things like that. So if we could come back with some research of like, hey, we went out in these areas, then these areas are critically protected and we gathered these mushrooms at this season, that would be cool to start at least documenting it and then maybe present that information back to the county and say, hey, look, this is what we've been able to do so far.
absolutely, yeah, and right, you're kind of hitting on one of my like I don't know. It's conservation is a difficult field because it's so there's so many. It's just a very interesting world to think about. Like, what we do as humans, and what we wait for, or want to build, or want to promote, and it's like that's partly why community science is so cool and so amazing, is because people just study what they want to study and they don't have to wait for 3 years of government figuring out funding and mandates and whatever it is. Again, a both and situation. Like we have such amazing information on the rare plants, rare animals. We have species like strategies, right, to help reintroduce wolves and all these different bald eagles that are success stories. And that's because they're resourced, not just on a community, like a local level, but on a government, on like a top down level. So I think in our country, we both I guess a big theme in my life is like, we need both of these pockets of whatever is perceived as polarities or dichotomies. It's like, we need both of them. And how can they communicate with each other? How can they gift each other? How can they be exchanges rather than perceived as these like isolated differences? And that's really how we will continue having these like step forward into our continual growth and emergence. But yeah, I think that's awesome. So if you want to talk about that, I guess, further off the podcast too, like let me know. We can always, I'm down to connect all these people who've done things and help with any insight.
Awesome. Is there any specific advice you'd give to anyone else who might be working or thinking about working at the legislative level?
Ooh, I think that it's just awesome. It's just fantastic. Thank you for doing that. And it's so localized, right? Like we need in our, state funding systems, there's federal funding and state funding on local and county and all these things. And I would just say that however you want to help fungi, whatever you are called to do it. It's not like fungal conservation happens in one way. People who educate on fungi, people who talk about the third F, adding funga to flora and fauna. Juliana Furci, a dear friend who's the foundress of the Fungi Foundation, the global nonprofit fungal conservation work, has been doing incredible things. And she was on Pfister, and other folks really delineated the term funga. So adding that term just in your day-to-day life can be all these things that we do, what we choose, who we choose to be, has ripple effects. So be proud to be a mushroom person and use the term funga. It's just the same as fauna and flora. So it talks about the fungi in a given time or place, fauna, flora, funga. And this is a strategy that can help create resources and awareness for fungi, because start noticing every time you see the term fauna, flora, or people speak it. And just ask, hey, can you just tell them, oh, there's a third F. Did you know? Funga, because funga are not plants, they're not animals. And they fall between the cracks of our legislative system, of our justice system, so called. They become a minority in our land care, in our stewardship. If like people of color or indigenous people, are not included in our formal government structures, it's the same thing. People slip through cracks. They need to be advocated for. They need to be given space. So it's use the third F.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You mentioned, what was her name? Juliana Fulci?
Yeah, Juliana Furci. Fungi Foundation. She would be an excellent person on this podcast as well.
Okay. And she's based out of South America?
Yeah. She mostly is in Chile. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we see each other like at the Telluride Mushroom Festival most of the time, and that's just, I'll shout that as well. And Telluride Festival is just it's wonderful. It's a good time. It's where you get to parade through the streets singing "We love mushrooms" and come with a mushroom costume and perform at the mycologist mycological poetry show, and also hear world-renowned experts sharing their wisdom.
Well, that's awesome. I'm probably going to go to Telluride this year.
Really? This year?
Yeah. I just have to work out my flights. So.
Awesome. I'll see you there. Are you going to have a good costume in mind?
I have some things. Like I have this, but I will definitely have something better. I don't have anything crazy planned yet, though. So that would be something I should start working on, is making it a really fun, interactive costume.
Oh, that's so cool. I hope, please, we'll see each other there.
Yeah, that'll be fun. You fly in from New York, or do you drive in?
We fly from New York. That's a long drive. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like 21 hours for me too. I'm like, I can't do that. That's too much in the car.
Yeah. Oh, exciting.
Well, what we're talking about is Telluride Mushroom Festival for anyone who's curious, and you should definitely look it up. It happens in August, so it is coming up quickly, about a month away, and it has a world-renowned mushroom parade where people put on extravagant costumes and create mushroom magic in the streets together. So,
yeah, and it's one of the oldest, largest mushroom festivals around the world. It was created in 1981, and I think one thing that's so special about it is it never separated itself from psychedelics, from psychoactive mushrooms. And a lot of mycologists have, for good reasons, because, the fact that they are a Schedule 1 illegal substance that you could be jailed for being in the possession of. But that's, I think, a very magical way that the Telluride Mushroom Festival has been able to create a beautiful container for all of the, every mushroom is magic.
Well, now that we're talking about magic mushrooms, let's dive into, how do you feel about women in the psychedelic space? So basically, as I see it, more and more women are reclaiming space in the psychedelic movement, and we're bringing our unique wisdom to the table. And it's like such a fascinating conversation that we can dive into related to women being able to use psychedelics before and after birth, and how that may have an effect on their mental, emotional, physical state. Women who are learning how to safely microdose throughout their motherhood journey, and also women who are starting to lead their own research into what happens on a different day in our cycle for women taking psychedelics. So, any of those things fascinate you?
Oh my gosh. Well, so much so that at this year's Telluride Festival, I'm presenting on women and psychedelics. So
Yes.
absolutely. You know, I mean, just taking into consideration the fact that, you know, so many of like academic testings, you know, for psychedelics are often done on men, right? Like most of the pharmacological knowledge we have about people often comes from men's bodies being tested. So there's just so, I mean, the idea that, first off, the term of psychedelics was really coined in 1953, I think, 51, 53, I'm forgetting right now. And, you know, by two men, by like, there's just such a white male dominated field. And the field itself is fabricated, right? I mean, the term psychedelics was created, and it, you know, can include so many different beings who are alive. You know, there's like ibogaine, which comes from a toad. There's psychedelic mushrooms. There's DMT, LSD. There and it's just an interesting. It's like, what are we really talking about here? Because so many of these psychoactive substances or beings have been worked with and ingested for hundreds or thousands of years before we even started using the term psychedelic, which really just means mind manifesting, and it truly means soul manifesting. Psyche really means spirit or soul, and so I think that there's what my real intention with bringing to the festival and this presentation I'm giving is, well, I became inspired by this book I saw called Women and Psychedelics, and it's published by the Chacruna Institute. With, you know, Beatriz Labate, really amazing people are involved with this. So if nobody's heard of that yet, any of your listeners, look up the Chacruna Institute. They have so many resources, and I think they really exist to uplift psychedelics, opportunities, voices in psychedelics. And I just started reading this book, and I was so inspired by the information that they shared through this book. And I was like, why don't people know about this stuff? Or why aren't they talking about these women? It's really only men's names plus Maria Sabina, who are spoken about in the field of psychedelics. And my intention with, you know, voicing this dialogue is to just complexify the stories that we like to tell ourselves. You know, psychedelics, they bring freedom, you know, they bring liberation, they bring transformation. And if we are only talking about those stories that are coming from men of liberation or white men or, you know, North America, we're not listening to the full story of psychedelics. We're not listening to the full story of who we are as people, of our planet, of the vast complex experiences that people have. And so it's just, I wanted to bring all those women in history who haven't been expressed, who haven't been voiced, who have been lost throughout the cracks, and also to consider the women right now who are really leading a lot of the psychedelic research and holding a lot of psychedelic space. But that's just, you know, being a woman. I just want all this stuff to be talked about more and integrated, you know, for us to commingle all of this knowledge. Knowledge comes from very many places.
That's amazing. I attended the Psychedelic Science Conference this year, and one of the interesting talks that I happened upon was called The Acid Queen. Have you heard of her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, tell me what you learned. How was that?
So the Acid Queen was really cool. They basically had found a bunch of the paperwork that Timothy Leary and his ex-wife had. She had saved it for decades and kept it safe. And then she knew that it was valuable and got it transferred over to, I think, the New York library or some type of library system where it could become public knowledge. But this woman was incredible in her forethought, in her ability to actually help like guide the psychedelic movement in her bravery, she hid from decades underground. Like, she had a phenomenal story. So yeah, if anyone wants to read her book, it's The Acid Queen. It was written about her. So based on documents that we're seeing, based on photographs, based on things, it is her, basically her document, her story.
Yeah, Rosemary Woodruff Leary.
Yes.
And that's just like so much of, it's like just these names, you know, we've heard Timothy Leary for like so decades, and it's becomes a household name. And, you know, admittedly, it's like I'm reading this book of, you know, 60 people's new names, and I'm like, how can I commit these to memory? And that's one of the big like intentions I have, is just to say their names and to say them again and again, because that's similar when I teach about mushrooms. It's like the normal, you know, people aren't comfortable with the term mycelium. And so when I'm teaching mycelium, I say, repeat after me, mycelium. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, Rosemary Woodruff Leary, Rosemary Woodruff Leary, Rosemary Woodruff Leary.
Say her name. She existed.
Say her name. Yeah. And she's an amazing, she's somewhat of like she spent her decades in hiding, because of her, you know, psychedelic life, basically. So on this topic too, I mean, it's a similar question, I think, Cassandra. Why did you make a podcast that focuses on women and mushrooms?
I made this podcast because I really want to inspire young women to get into the field of mycology and see all of the beautiful avenues that they can take that have been carved out from women before them, because this is such a relatively new field that I wanted to have a place for us as women to have conversations and express how we feel about what we're doing in this work, and how to inspire young women, young children, everyone basically, to have more of a say in the world that they want to create. And the way that they can do it, one way, I think, is through interacting with the field of mycology. So this is a platform for those conversations and for people to see and hear the stories of awesome women doing awesome things.
I love that. Yeah. Do you know a lot of I mean, since I've been in this field, it's amazing to see the difference of what, you know, 15 years, 10 years can make. Like, there's so many kids that come on mushroom walks, and so many kids that know so much about mushrooms, and that just didn't happen that much a decade ago.
Yeah, so I looked it up recently, and it was somewhere around 40% of my listeners are actually under 35 and in the female range. So there are a decent amount that are women who are somewhere between 25 and 35 who are listening, who are curious.
Yeah. And I mean, even like 10-year-olds, you know, like, there's so much that they're learning right now about fungi now that we have more open channels about it. It's amazing.
I've been looking at some of the recent books that come out in the children's section for mushrooms, and it is so cute and inspiring. I buy them to be able to give them to friends, but the books are so exciting now for kids. Like, it brings mushrooms down into their reality, tells them a story, tells them all this cute stuff, and actually explains the life cycle of mushroom, or actually explains their role in the forest. And I just wish we would have had books like that as a kid, because it's a whole new world right now. It's pretty exciting.
It's so interesting. It's like it brings mushroom wisdom into reality, right? It's like, what does it mean if a child can't understand what you're saying, right? It's like, this is reality here. And one of my favorites is by my good friend Chris Baker, On a Mushroom Day. So I highly recommend that book. She lives here. She would be a great person to interview as well. And on this topic too of the women in psychedelics, I'd like to speak to at least one more name, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many. I just read the book, and we don't have enough time to talk about them, but I think that on the subject of Timothy Leary and these really large psychedelic names like Albert Hofmann is another one. I want to voice Susie Ramstein. Have you heard of Susie Ramstein?
I don't think I have.
So she was Dr. Hoffman's assistant in Switzerland in the 40s, his lab assistant, and she was 22 years old. And so Doc Albert Hofmann synthesized LSD from the ergot fungus, right? The ergot that grows on grains. And, he accidentally absorbed some of it one day and started tripping out a little bit. And then thought, okay, well then maybe I'll intentionally ingest some of this new chemical in a few days. So he did. And have you heard of Bicycle Day, Cassandra?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. I mean, right. Okay. So we all have this imagery of Hoffman biking home, right, with like the green mountains behind him and like the sun and the moon and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was not alone on this day. Susie Ramstein was with him. Really? She biked home with him because she helped him get home. She cared for him as he started to trip, and she was the first LSD trip sitter. Albert Hoffman's wife wasn't home, so she came home with him, was there for hours, cared for him, cooled him down a little bit because he started to get kind of, just tripping out, I guess. Mm-hmm. And she went to Neighbors, to get some milk to try to help him calm down. And she was there with him. And by the end of the trip, it was okay. Things were grounded and balanced, and we wouldn't have a lot of the notes about these trip reports and that research without Susie Ramstein, these really detailed, amazing notes. And not only was she the first sort of LSD trip sitter, and she was also there on Bicycle Day. So I think the picture of Albert Hoffman should have Susie Ramstein next to him in assistance. But she was also the first woman to ingest LSD on June 12th. Later April 19th, Bicycle Day, and she ingested LSD a few times in her research. And apparently, instead of biking home, she had to take a tram home. So let us all create Tram Day on June 12th, right?
Oh, that's funny. I actually learned this year at Psychedelic Science that they made June 20th World Psychedelic Day.
Oh.
And that's actually my birthday. So I was highly amused. But yeah, they had a whole booth, World Psychedelic Day, 620. And they told me something that kind of made sense, but I'm not 100% sure on. They said, well, there's 420 and then there's 920. And 620 is like almost in the middle of the two.
Sure.
That's a very, yes, okay answer.
Whatever you want. Yeah.
But
yeah. And I think it lends, right, this whole discussion lends so much to, there's not only women's voices in psychedelics, there's indigenous people who have been working and relating with so-called psychedelics for longer than a lot of colonized people have, and, queering psychedelics. I mean, there's so many different, like I said, again, places where knowledge comes from. And that's just, same thing with conservation. It's like, why is this being conserved? Who says this being is conserved? Do we have people who are actually living with the land and who know the land in that localized area, who want to care for this mushroom or this bird? Who says that these things are conserved, rare, or threatened, and why? There's so much there are a lot of isolated voices coming to discussions these days. And my just big intention is to create, fluidity between voices, to be able to hear each other. And it's not like it's a democratic process. It's not like if every person has a voice, things will happen. That would get real sloppy too. But it's coming down to the specialists, like the people who have spent 20 years looking at the people who live here in this place and who could tell you the way that the land has changed the story of the land, partnering with the people who maybe have done a lot of conservation work or psychedelic work or something, or the people who have ingested and worked with peyote for multiple generations, and partnering with them in these psychedelic therapeutic spaces. There's so much exchange, and that's really what the fungi teach us. It's a big kernel of wisdom, is that they help us understand that life is not, we don't exist in isolation. We understand life's structures through embodied connectivity, and it's not, it's relational accountability. It's are the fungi asking us to be accountable for our relations with them. The water is asking us to be accountable for our relations with them. The mountains, the squirrels, the soil. It's like, this is the actual earth we exist on. But that's what yes, everybody come here, welcome.
So how do you do your writing? Can you tell us a little bit about your Substack? Like, is there a process behind when you write and you share this wisdom that you've gathered? Is there a theme to your writing that you want to talk about? Like, share with us a little bit about your Substack.
Oh, I appreciate this question. Man, offhand, I'm just like, it's kind of a smorgasbord a little bit. But I've always liked language and communicating and connecting with other humans. I used to write what I called mycoastrology for years. Like when I was leading the mushroom walk with you, I think I was writing mycoastrology then.
Yes, you are.
And it was a form of expressing what I called like the celestial with the terrestrial. It was, that I felt like astrology was this rich language of connection and like wisdom, and that mushrooms were left out of it. And it was just like, oh, Cancer is where mushrooms belong. And I'm like, that's like saying that Taurus is where trees belong. Yet every single astrological symbol has like 20 tree associations and all these things. And it's like, I wanted to give life, give expression, and give animism to fungi. It's like, oh my gosh, this beautiful like earth ball, this earth star, puffball earth star mushroom is like, who are they? What kind of astrological archetype are they expressing? This star, this earth star, I don't know, like maybe it's Virgo, right? Like this earthy star shining from the soil. But so that kind of, I think, opened up a lot of my, did it every new and full moon. So it was a good practice for me. And it opened up more of my creative, personal, intuitive interest with fungi, which is what I encourage everybody to continue with. How are you intuiting fungi? It's like the same thing. If people asking me what mushroom is this, and I'm like, what is it saying to you? And so I write differently. It's always a little bit different. I try to have a rhythm because that forces myself to, be completed with something. So I try to kind of create something in my life for every new and full moon again. Most of that, I hope to have like a writing piece out, but it changes. It morphs with how I'm feeling. If I'm going through a very emotional, like embodied process, whether it's like grief or just change or, it might be more poetic or more of a song or something that's a little bit more just not as streamlined maybe as like an essay. But I like to write often. I have a lot of ideas that are in my heart. And when the time is right, it's really about, striking when the iron's hot, of like, if I'm feeling inspiration about this thing, to grab a pen and paper and write it down right now, or else it just continues, floating, and I will I'll unspool it. So it's part of a practice for sure that I like to commit to and grow. But I find writing about things really fulfilling. It helps me like feel like I've come to a new, like every time I write something, I feel like I'm like cycling through my feelings and like spirit and emotions, and like it's not just my thought about something, it's like my relationship with this concept in entirety. And I mean, it comes in different ways. Like I do write music, I do ceramics, I make different things, but writing is one of the largest ways too, where I feel like when I'm ready to release something out to be witnessed by others and to connect, to make contact with others, to resonate with other people on this, like, on these feelings, on my relations with this thing, I'm looking for connection. I'm looking for community. And it always feels like like a big cycle that I've gone through. And it is very nourishing for me. I learn a lot.
That's amazing. Can you tell people where they can find your Substack if they want to follow your writing?
Yeah, it's GabrielaD'Elia.substack.com. And I've recently changed my publication name as well to Fungi Talk, which I think is just very, it's very like, it's very easy to get. And it used to be Pulse et Mirabilis, which is like a very strange title, but it really, mirabilis is like this Latin term that is used in taxonomy, and it just means that like something's admirable, something's beautiful. And the Pulse was like my, fake like genus name, fake like capital Pulse. So like an admirable pulse, and so the fungi are like an extension of the Earth's heartbeat in a way, which I like, but it's a little bit thick, it's a little bit dense. So I think that just Fungi Talk, I connect with fungi. I'm not just speaking from the heart. From the brain. That's really the kind of relationships that I want to cultivate around me, is like, how do we know these beings with our hearts, with our bodies, and not just with our brains?
Do you have an embodiment practice that you'd like to share with the listeners of one way to get to know the mushrooms a little deeper? I think what wants to come out. Well, maybe two things. These are the kinds of practices I do in my deep imagination walks. Or circles. You don't have to be outside to be doing this stuff. You can just imagine and engage with mushrooms with your intention. So on that subject too, on that note, just have a journey. Just close your eyes and, relax, take some deep breaths in the space, and just, release anything you're carrying from the day, deep breathing out. And, take a few breaths in and have an intention, and just really visualize, maybe like a space that is like a safe, comfortable, nourishing, just something that well, a space in nature, just like a place. For me, it's often a hillside with grass blowing in the wind, and just picture yourself there and breathe in this place and picture all the details of this place. And then whatever your intention is, maybe it's like, what are the mushrooms telling you today? What is the message of fungi for you today? And when you're ready, just say that, invite that, say, okay, fungi, what is your message for me today? Or, who are you? What are you showing me? And then just follow your imagination, trust your imagination, trust what is being shown to you in your body. And so maybe something comes forth, maybe you're shown like a color or an image or anything, a phrase, and you can check in these ways just every day. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing, and say thank you. Maybe you want to exchange something back, like say, okay, what do you need from me now? Like, what are you asking me to leave with you? Do you want me to, leave my anger with you? Do you want me to leave like, appreciation with you? Or, how to start talking with them. Use your words too, verbally expressing out loud, sing with them, go just find a mushroom outside and crouch down and be with them and ask them who they are, what they're doing. You can do it physically as well, and just be with them and let yourself learn something from them. And then maybe journal about it, maybe tell a friend, share the wisdom with someone else, get them into the practice.
Exactly.
Involve others.
Exactly. It's the whole idea of, this embodied learning. Like, how are we actually learning? This, I think, gets into what psychedelics is like asking us to pay attention to, is there's so much talk about integrating our psychedelic experiences, or what if we integrate our scientific experiences or integrate these intuitive experiences? Like, is that really so meaningful that it starts to make big changes in our human psyches or in our behavior? If so, like, let's start learning in different ways, right? It's like the education, compulsory schooling was not made to liberate people. It was made to babysit kids while their parents were working in industrialized, like the industrial evolution systems, like start questioning what works in an embodied, spiritual, intuitive way, and integrate that with everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what were you just experiencing? I noticed you closing your eyes a little bit. Did anything happen with you? I know we're on a podcast. You might not be in that space.
Well, okay, so yes, I do have a place that I go, and it's called my Fairy Magic Wonderland. And for me, it's a very soft, mossy, vibrant green with water flowing through it area that little fairies like to hang out and the mushrooms grow. So I usually go to this place when I'm prompted to go somewhere peaceful and nice. And the mushrooms that I were seeing were like really pretty blue psychedelic colors. So they were in their nice, like, you could almost say electrified blue, like very vibrant. And they were just kind of like happy, sending off good energy. I don't know if they had a specific message for me. What kind of came through in a way was do more mushroom photography, because your heart likes to do mushroom photography. And just from that thought, then I went to remembering how I saw that you had posted about the wrinkled peach mushroom that you found recently and how cool that mushroom was. So it's kind of just like playing in my head with like the idea of like, oh, I should probably do a little more mushroom photography. Like that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed. So yeah, that was my message for the day.
Oh, yay. Thank you for voicing that. Thanks for seeing that there being presented for you. I love that. Yeah, because mushrooms they want to be seen too, right? They're so beautiful and people just want to see them too. It's like, they are beautiful, beautiful.
Do you know about the mushroom essences that Robert Rogers made?
I just had his book on my desk, but I just put it away right before this began. Yeah, I used to make mushroom essences as well because he inspired me to do that. I found that book when I started leading mushroom walks as well. And yeah, I used to make essences a little bit. I'm like, that's been something that I've considered as well, thinking, am I supported? Do I go back to making some of these essences? But it's, I actually, for the first time in, I don't know, years, referenced his book in that recent piece I published about the wrinkled peach. Because I don't know, it's so interesting. I love essence. I love intuiting everything. And like, for me, a big practice is having my own experience with the being or the teacher, whoever it is, before opening to somebody else's, knowledge about things. It could be important to learn from and inspiring and very helpful. But I always want to make sure, like, I'm really quick in life. I have been, I feel, in like learning and like directing myself to other things. And that's something that I'm really practicing is like, okay, just take a breath with myself for days, maybe, before doing any kind of externalized research or intake, and just like focusing on the intake that's coming from within my own experience. But yes, that book's awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
Do you like it?
Oh yeah, I've had it for many years and I've always been fascinated by it, but I never bought the kit, so I've never had his essences. I ran into some friends though, they run the company Fruiting Body. And
yep. They come to Telluride. They're awesome.
Yeah, they told me they partnered with him. And so now they have a whole wooden case and it's gorgeous and you can get the whole set. So I've been thinking about it because I've always loved mushroom essences. I also work with flower essences. So I thought it would be kind of cool to maybe put them together sometimes, and then also at other times in the month have like separated formulas and just see how they work with my psyche. So yeah.
Absolutely. Have you made any yet or taken any?
I've never made a mushroom essence. I made flower essences.
Yeah. What flower essences do you like?
Well, it depends, but my teacher works a lot with the trees as protection. So I really like some of the different tree energies. Cedar is one of my favorite for sure. Cedar is like the most grounding, nourishing, return you to your body essence that exists. If I'm looking for like a more positive, like creative inspiration, Indian paintbrush. That one always kind of like adds some warmth to my soul and gets my creative fires going. And if I want to obviously clear or like help the flowers or have the flowers help me to release, white sage, definitely white sage or yarrow or garlic. Those are the three that like definitely help me clear the most.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Oh, but I was just saying, but I like to make like a little formula with like maybe 1 to 3 to 5 max of these, and then take it for a few weeks and kind of go through a process with the flower essences.
Yeah, I think it's like another expression of this connection, right? Because we can just, we can make offerings for these beings or connect with them in these different ways, every day and whatever rituals or, practices we have. But I think the essences are very interesting too, because it's so much more of a physical practice that we can engage with. Yeah. I know I haven't like my practice of relating and being with mushrooms I haven't been ingesting really much. I haven't been taking medicinal mushroom tinctures, which are just like all over our house because that's what my husband makes too. And I used to make years ago as well, and the essence and everything. I just for the past year and a half, I just haven't like I'm not even eating that many mushrooms anymore. I'm just like really having these like, oh, if they're here, they found me, and like just like making it an exploration and like going out or just if something pops into my mind for some reason, like some mushroom or some random crusty old mushroom in the middle of the winter, I find it's like, okay, just being really aware of my environment, I guess, what's around me and not focusing so much on the intentional intake, but opening myself to what's there. I guess that's what I've been practicing. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And
Yeah.
do you feel deeply connected to them in a more embodied way because you're experiencing them through these more like organic experiences?
I don't know. I think it helps me remember how alive everything is outside of me. It's like maybe practicing not controlling my environment, maybe as much as just being receptive to like who's speaking to me, kind of a thing. But I haven't really like voiced that. I haven't really realized that. But I think that's kind of partly what I was, maybe how I've just been orienting is just, open to the spontaneity, I guess. But I love, we all go in these waves. I'm sure I'll go
Yeah.
back into like intentional taking and, welcoming, receiving of things too. It's interesting.
It's beautiful to hear about your journey though and see where you're at right now, because I do think it is true. It's kind of like waves with mushrooms. You'll go through seasons where you want to eat them all the time, where you want to put them in soup, you want to have them in your food. Then you'll go through times where you want to have like a little microdosing in your life, and then that'll disappear and come and go. And I think that's probably like a really healthy way to approach it, because mushrooms are such a nuanced field. There's so many ways that we can interact with them, and allowing the spirit to have the deepest interaction and getting yourself in touch with them through these more embodied or interactive experiences, and then taking people out on these nature walks. It's such valuable work because, they're so much more than just medicine or just an agricultural product or something that's going to save the world. They actually are wisdom keepers and teachers. And the more we connect with that, like the deeper we can be in relation to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe I'm experiencing like a release of control because I tried to do so many things with them and, for a few years. And so I'm just like, come to me when you're ready kind of a thing. And also I noticed like we have this chanterelle patch that's fruited for the 4th time now this July on our lands. And, I haven't eaten any of them, and I've like harvested them a few times, and every time I do, it's like a gift, which I think is, I guess, just partly what's happening now is like, I just don't, like I feel full, I feel fulfilled in so many ways that I just want to keep sharing all the mushroom gifts with you. It's a part of the exchange that I can provide, offer, and continue that connectivity. Yeah.
And so chanterelles are common in New York in July?
Yeah, chanterelles usually come out in the summer rains, and
Wow.
on our land we have the smooth chanterelle, which is very interesting. So it doesn't actually have any gills or ridges. They're smooth, with that apricot odor, and it was really amazing actually because it's rained about an inch every maybe 4 or 5 days here for the past couple of weeks, which mycorrhizal mushrooms like chanterelles are gonna love.
Yeah.
And so one night it started raining at 3 or 4 a.m. And I was out walking our dog by 7 a.m. and mushrooms had grown within 3 or 4 hours from the rain. And that was amazing. I had never had that kind of like firsthand, like just immediate seeing of that. Like I didn't know that chanterelles could grow, 2 or 3 inches in 3 or 4 hours of rain. That was amazing.
That's shockingly. Yeah.
And like 30 of them. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're just so alive. So it's just right. That's the kind of, that's my practice is like, yeah, wow. And especially how alive New York is. That might be part of the thing is too, out in the Northeast I've only moved here. I've lived here for the past 3 years. And so I'm just so like learning about these new beings, new people, new, mushrooms and bears and, so much tree diversity and snakes and water snakes and all these things in my environment that I'm just like, I don't have time to like take anything. I'm just like open to who's there,
Yeah, I definitely remember visiting the East Coast and swimming with water snakes for the first time. It was a little bit of a shocking experience coming from California, not gonna lie.
Yeah, right. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So tell me, you are a member or do you run the Catskill Mycological Society or what's your involvement with them?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, my husband, John Michelotti, owns Catskill Fungi, which is a business, and we partner and do a lot of fun things together. And we might be running a trip to Puerto Rico in December as well that your listeners can look forward to.
Awesome.
And so that's one thing. And he does a lot of education. And then there are mushroom clubs in our area as well. There's down in the city, in New York City, there's NYMS, New York Mycological Society. Current president's Ethan Crenson, past president was Sigrid Jacob, who's on the FunDiS board. And they are amazing. They have a lot of online presence, a very active club. Anybody can join and, partake in their online offerings. Next to me is the Mid-Hudson Mycological Society. One of the co-presidents is Luke Sarantonio. And then there's the Western New York Mycological Club. There's the Western Pennsylvania. There's a few different mushroom clubs around us, but that's a great resource is joining your local mushroom club. And you can go to NAMA, which is North American Mycological Association. It's like the mother umbrella of all the local clubs. And I just am members of Mid-Hudson and New York Mycological. I'm just a member. But you can go to the NAMA website and look for your local mushroom club and join them. And I was greatly involved. I was the vice president in the Utah Mushroom Club, the Mushroom Society of Utah, when I lived there, because that's where I'm from. And I initiated the campaign to create a state mushroom for Utah, which is the porcini or the Boletus edulis, and Chandler Rosenberg and Katie Lawson and Ashley Simon, and so many of us saw that through. So Utah now has a state mushroom, which is also a great way to elevate the voices of fungi and consider, our ecological symbols, right? Like the porcini stand for the mycorrhizal associations, the forest health. So that's another way, kind of circling back to the beginning part of our conversation, that people can get involved in fungal conservation or just uplifting voices.
Well, why did you choose the porcini?
We thought that Utah would want an edible mushroom. That Utah's a little bit, Utah's not like Colorado or New York or like Oregon. They don't want something that's like unique and weird. Utah wants like a classic, like good old family mushroom that's like, but that is something that's big and beautiful and plump and like really, it's a really dynamic looking, it's a beautiful mushroom. It's like this, it's a pored mushroom, and it's an big edible mushroom that looks like a loaf of bread, which is found in the forest. And a lot of people forage for that, for the porcini in Utah. So it's, the strategy we helped form was that Utah is an outdoor state. People move there to be outside and to be with nature, which is wonderful. They love skiing, they love snowboarding, they love biking, whatever it is. And a pastime is also foraging for mushrooms. So we really helped bring that part of our culture into the center of like, foraging is actually a big deal here. Like, people love hunting, people love wild foraging out there. And then a big part of our strategy was partnering with Bryn Dentinger, who is a mycologist at the University of Utah, and he's actually studying the phylogeny, or basically like the genetic tree, the lineage of porcini mushrooms. So he studied them a lot throughout the Rocky Mountains, throughout Utah. So there was like a central energy of porcini happening in Utah. And it's a very interesting mushroom. They're very interesting for me as well. They follow me in different ways. And I think they're partly expressing for me this like my Italian lineage of, Italians love porcini. For the word porcini is Italian and it means little pigs. And so, yeah, I think ecologically, community-wise, culture-wise, it's a whole story of, we've had a lot of thought in which mushroom to represent.
Well, that's cool. I found my first porcinis a few weekends ago out at a small event called Myco Camp. So exciting.
Where's Myco Camp?
So Myco Camp happens basically in Oregon, from what I can tell. And they changed locations, but this one was on the eastern side of Mount Hood. And it's put on by Tony Rousseau. He's big in the identification scene. And he invited, 100 plus people, probably more. And I think 60, 70 of us all met up and camped off grid for the whole weekend and then would go out on mushroom forays. So it was pretty fun. It's been a very dry season though. So we didn't find a large amount, but we found enough to like entertain ourselves.
So that was your first porcini, did you say?
Well, I'd found them in Washington, but they were too far gone and not in a place to be eaten. These were like 3 perfect ones that I found that like could actually be cooked and eaten and weren't, too buggy or crazy. So I consider them like my very first like actual good ones.
Oh, wow. What was that like? Yeah, you had your porcini encounter.
It was pretty exciting. And I was with my friend Tom from the Puget Sound Mycological Society. So we'd kind of gone off on like a little tangent out in the forest by ourselves. And he's like, this is the exact environment they want to be in. And I would almost like have one of those weird moments they always say, like you put your bag down and then you look to the right and there it is. And you've been looking for it for like an hour. So it was kind of like that, where they just kept popping up when I would kind of stop looking. And I found that very amusing. Like when you're focused and you're looking for a mushroom, a lot of times they hide. But as soon as you relax and you're just in the environment and just being yourself, it's like, oh, there you are. So that was cool.
I think that's an important thing you just brought up, because it's like we have this, honestly, it's a really like colonizing mindset of like, we're hunting for this thing to make it ours and capture it and to find it. And it's like, I do have this anecdotal evidence as well that if you do that, you're not going to find them very well. And I think that, once we open ourselves up to them having their own lives, their own cultural embeddedness, they're going to present themselves to us more. And a lot of that really requires slowing down and getting out of our minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was cool, learning to just be present with the forest and notice the micro changes that would signify whether they might be in that environment. He was actually a great little teacher, my friend Tom. I appreciated his masculine energy too, of helping us stay on the path and him watching the map and everything of where we were going, as that was one thing I have not developed the skill set as well. And so I appreciated that he held that masculine energy and I was able to relax and just be like that receptive feminine and then find all the mushrooms. It was pretty great, honestly.
Yeah, that's wonderful, right? We need each other. Yeah. It's like, right, the complexity of our relational accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a nice experience. And then being at Myco Camp itself was really cool because they were kids. There was everyone. Everyone showed up. All these people who love mushrooms, all these people who are interested in mushrooms, people who want to share it with their kids and want their kids to get into it. Like, it was just such a nice little population that appeared and drove like far out into the forest to do this thing. with very little like services or anything provided. So I like mushroom people because they're like that. They will literally hop in their car and meet you in the forest anytime, anywhere to go find the mushroom.
Yeah, yeah. Very passionate, very alive. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So I'm happy that I got to go to that event. And just like, really, I think my favorite part, honestly, was there were some kids there and they got so incredibly into it. And they were running through the forest and they were finding the mushrooms and they were popping up with their porcinis and they were like insanely into it. And I feel like it was one of those life changing moments for them where they will never forget this very like almost mystical experience that they were having by running through the forest, by being so in their body, by being closer to the ground, by having better eyes than the rest of us, that they were able to see all the mushrooms and like collect what the adults were looking for. Like they just seem so fulfilled in those moments. And I want more children to have experiences like that where they're activated, they're happy, they're focused, they're passionate, and they're doing it in a way where they're interacting with nature, learning something new, learning a skill set that they can take into their future. They'll forever know how to identify a porcini now.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you learned something life-changing too that day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It made me feel happy to like finally find the porcinis in that state where they're still slightly underground, but they're popping through, but they're ready and they're happy and they're healthy. Like, I don't know. It felt very victorious.
Yeah. Really, really beautiful, really intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, the porcini are such beautiful mushrooms. It's beautiful.
Aw. Well, let's close it out. And if you have one message from the fungal world that you'd like to pass on to the next generation of women in the space, what would it be?
I would probably, let's see. I would just ask everybody, every woman, every kid, every man, every person, how do you relate with the fungal energy? Like, how does it feel in your body? What does the fungal wisdom feel like in your body? What power, what insight, what information do you become aware of when you allow yourself to feel the fungal wisdom?
So just feel it all, people. Feel the mushrooms, eat the mushrooms, sense the mushrooms, play with the essences, feel them all.
Yeah. What about you? What do you say?
I really hope that the upcoming generations are able to go beyond the books and go beyond the computer-based learning and seek out mentors, seek out people who've been in this space and work closely with other people. Because I see so much connection and value in the community that we can create when we have these in-person experiences. So I would say my message is, yeah, it's cool to learn through a book. It's cool to learn through online platforms, but the part that will really activate your heart and soul is the in-person and the connections that you make and going to events like Telluride Mushroom Festival and getting to dive deeper into the community because it is such a rich and unique community filled with amazing people who all have passions that inspire them. And through that inspired action together, we are a mycological movement and there's room for everyone.
Yay. I love that. I love how you share that. Yeah, we wouldn't have, like, you can't really know a fungus by just reading about them. You need people as well. You need other people who can tell you this is where it grows. This is where they like to grow. This is not the right one to eat. Like,
Yeah.
we need each other. We need each other for this whole, the continuation of this knowledge. So that's exactly, I totally agree. Well said. Yes.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Any upcoming projects, places they can find you, where they can subscribe to your newsletter?
You can find me on Instagram, Gabriela Mushroom, for people who use that. And my Substack is Gabriela D'Elia. what is it? I think it's GabrielaD'Elia.substack.com. I think it's Gabriela D'Elia first. GabrielaD'Elia.com, FunDiS, FUNDIS.org for all of the conservation community science stuff. I'm still a board member with them and working closely with our work. And, Catskill Fungi, you can find me there too. My husband's company, we do a lot of collaboration together. I'll be we do a full weekend retreat at the Menlo Retreat Center in upstate New York. The next one is the first weekend of September. My husband and I and our friends Aubrey and Delta and Erwin, it's an awesome time. So we do those retreats twice a year. I'll be at NEMF, the Northeast Mycological Federation. I'll be at NAMA. I'll be at Telluride, and come say hi, and thank you all for being interested in fungi, and let's all keep sporulating.
Yes, please. All right. Well, I hope to see you at some of those events, especially Telluride Mushroom Festival. And thank you so much for your time today, Gabriela.
Thank you so much, Cassandra, for having me and for creating this podcast with so much love. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me and Gabriela today on Heal with Mushrooms. I hope this conversation left you feeling inspired to connect more deeply with the wisdom of fungi and the community that surrounds them. I mean, we are a pretty cool bunch of people. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. If you could, please share this with a friend, a loved one, or on social media. That would mean the world to me, helping this little podcast grow its mycelial network of listeners. And if you want to connect, you can find me on Instagram at Heal with Mushrooms. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm your host, Cassandra. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon. Bye.